If you were to call my daughter right now and I would say a big girl affirmation, he says, my name is Maris. I'm 9 years old. I'm a big girl. My daddy loves me. I'm strong. I'm determined. I'm a leader, and no one can stop me. And I can only stop myself, and that'll never happen.
What's up, dads? This is the Rise and Dad podcast, a podcast in perspective about life as a dad from dads who are intentional about their fatherhood. I'm your host, Kevin Del Rosario, and I have an awesome guest today. I've known him for many years. We work together in the corporate setting, and he's always been such a positive light in my life. I've connected with him about fatherhood, marriage, everything. I love to have him on the pod. Really excited, especially because I've experienced him as a positive dad, supporting just Black excellence as a big thing. You are an example of Black excellence. So we're really excited to have him here. So Mark, why don't you tell us your dad stats?
Hello, everybody. Mark Hatcher here. Detroit represent.
Hey.
So, my dad stats, I would go ahead and say I'm a father of 3, Safia, who's 22, Omar, who's 20, and Maris, who's 9. And though raising Omar and Safia from ages 2 and 4 respectively, they were not my biological children, but I raised them as if they were. And then Maris came into our lives a little bit over 9 years ago. My wife and I live in the Beacon Hill area of Seattle, and we try to do all things positive, all things inclusive, and all things active.
Man, I love that. That's already the social media clip right there. And like you talk about Safia and Omar, Safia, I'm sorry.
That's right.
You not being their biological father, but that really has nothing to do with actual fatherhood and parenting.
Yeah, that's right. There's no distinction whatsoever.
Yeah. So let's get into this. One of the first things that I want to touch upon is your identity as OG dad. You've mentioned that. You've mentioned that before, and you shared a little bit about, becoming a father later in life and what that experience was like. Go ahead and share, what was that?
So I'm referred to by friends as an OG dad because I became a father later in life. Didn't get married till mid-40s and then had a child 2 years after that. And I was very intentional about having a child. And so when Nolana and I were blessed to find out that we were expecting, it was a great time for us because now we had resources that we didn't have before. We had some experience, what she did because she had children already.
Yeah.
And we had a collective force that allowed us to be united. From the OG perspective, it meant that I had life experiences that I was able to talk to some of the younger fathers and share some of the lessons I learned throughout the way. I think from the standpoint of being an OG, what that meant is putting away some of the axioms that were norms to other people. Like parenting is 50-50. Parenting is not 50-50. Parenting is 100.
Let's go.
Because there is no point in time in which you look at a situation and you say, you know what, I'm only going to be 20% there for my kid, or I'm only going to be 40%.
Yeah.
When it comes to the safety, well-being, and development of your kid, it becomes 100% all the time. So as an older gentleman, having my first child allowed me to lean in through life experiences, so much so that when I took a conscious fathering class to try to figure out some of the things that I may not know, I realized right away that there was not a lot of diversity, not a lot of things that spoke to how I was raised as an individual. So that enabled me to have a conversation with the executive director and talk about some of those things and how they should be interspersed into the class. Once I did that, she thought it was such a good idea. She actually hired me to become one of the instructors. And so that further cemented
OG dad to teacher dad. Yeah, that's awesome.
So now I wasn't just the old guy having dad. I was more an instructor. So over the course of about 5 years, I probably championed or taught, I would say, and I'll use the term loosely, about 1,000 dads to be conscious fathers, if you will. And so that kind of cemented my role as the OG dad.
Yeah, I love that. And when you talk about conscious father, that's very in line with what we talk about here at the Rise and Dad podcast. Is being intentional about what you do, how you live your life, even how you live with your partner and be a partner. So that's pretty cool.
And the conscious fathering part was really about how to support your partner and how to show up and be present.
Yeah.
Because I'm not present if I'm
Yeah, on Instagram.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
like it's
right.
yeah, for sure.
Into feeling with my kids. One of the things that I did which was cool for my wife, was once we got home with Maris, from the time she was a week old, I would take her out for at least 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
The first hour was just to break away from home. The second hour was to do something active. It might be, just walk through the park or
Yeah.
something like that. The third hour would be like to change her or feed her.
Yeah.
And then the fourth hour would be to reintegrate her. That would give my wife a chance. And a lot of men don't understand this, but it gives your wife a chance to take a shower,
Oh,
to go to the bathroom.
Just be a regular human.
Yeah,
and
to
not be,
have a glass of wine or
Yeah.
something, because otherwise the baby's always attached to them.
Yeah.
And the longer you do it and the more you do it, it also gives your wife the confidence that you can be self-sustaining.
There you go.
With your kids.
Yeah, my wife there was this time, actually, this is the inspiration behind this pod, was that she was traveling for work and she was 15 days in Cambodia, just really far from us.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we have a nanny that helps, but
Yeah.
she was sick the first week.
Uh-huh.
So the first week I was doing morning, wake up, lunch, drop off, pick up, literally everything. And I learned so much from that experience. And I also shared it out. So I wrote a social media post. I was like, this is what I learned from my experience. And a lot of moms reached out to me like, man, I wish my husband would be more vocal about these experiences or be able to do some of these. And in my head, I'm like, how do you not know how to do that? Like, you should know how to put your son or daughter to bed.
Yep.
You should be able to do all those things.
All of those things.
And so it was a little surprising to me because it was like, why don't you already know that? And so I love to hear that, because like a lot of the things when I talk to guests on this show is like, what always comes out is this strong partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it should, because we say rise and dad and dads who are intentional. We are only the Robin to that women who are around there.
That's right. And it's interesting in our household. Not only is it the Batman and Robin thing, but for me, I'm very type A and my wife is very not. We show up very different. Mm-hmm. And so I show up when I have Maris running laps in the house and trying to figure out a crossword puzzle, things like that. Whereas my wife is more of a serene, I'll read the 50 pages a night to her before she goes to bed. That sort of thing. So those are some of the ways in which we differentiate from each other. But I'm very present, very adamant about being present with my daughter. And I love it. Honestly, I love it when my wife goes out of town. I love it. Maris has been around 9 years, and we've had about 15 trips. Yeah. And 10 of those have been just her and I. Yeah. And it's so cool. Now she packs her own bag and she navigates them through the airport. Yeah. We roll out together. It's the greatest thing. I love that.
That's so dope. One of the things you hit it when you said you like when your wife's out of town or does it. I'm the same, bro. Like the reason why it's like when my wife is around, my daughter is all about her. Yeah. Right. So they're just such buddies, right? But if she's gone, that's so cool. We're doing all these things. She'll often be like, hey, can I go out to happy hour with her friends? I was like, please, then we're going to hang out. I have a business trip for I can't wait. We're going to be hanging out. It's so cool.
And see, for us, because my daughter is very strong-willed and she's very type A too. Sure. What I like about when my wife is out of town, there's a single thread of communication.
There you go.
There's no mommy, daddy back and forth. When my wife is out of town, we have a routine and we have boundaries. So I set firm boundaries and I say, here's the schedule for today. What do you want to do? All right. If you still want to do B, then we have to complete A. Yeah. All right. We want to get to C. We need to hurry up with B. Yeah. And it allows me to manage the day, manage her, and it allows her to self-govern because I'm trying to develop and grow while I nurture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that, man. One more thing on the OG dad. So you became a dad later in life. Yeah. And did that change any about your approach to life? When you're a 22-year-old dad, you're still finding your way as yourself, right? Maybe we can assume that by 45, you have your shit together and you figure out, did it change at all? Or where you're like, I'm becoming a dad, or maybe you're asking for advice for people that are much younger than you.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be learned from all dads because the daddying or the parenting, if you will, does not come with a rule book. It doesn't come with instructions. Fact. So you have to figure it out as you go. But in terms of changing my routine, by the time I got to mid-40s, I wasn't pounding it like I used to. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so but what it made me do is be a little bit more selective about how often and how hard I went because no matter what, at about 7:15 every morning, Maris is going to come in the room and, Daddy, you sleep?
She opening your eyes.
Right? Yeah. So if you're baited from the night before, good luck to you.
That's hilarious.
That's the first thing. The next thing is in terms of planning. Like if you look at the life of Nolana and I now, probably 80% of things that we do are kid friendly. And it's great because Seattle has a great environment for that.
Yeah.
We go to the winery every single Friday, a winery that we're members of. Every single Friday, we go there from 4 to 6, and it's kid friendly. And Maris has been going there since she was in vitro. And so now she walks around like she owns the place.
Yeah,
She goes the
she's the governor of there.
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's awesome.
And there's several places like that. And friends, the changes that I made were picking places that were kid friendly.
I like
and
that.
Also, what I am home more. I enjoy getting my daughter set for her shower every night at 7. I was bathing her. My way of connecting, I was bathing her from the time she was born all the way up until she was like 6. Then I taught her how to bathe herself. And now she does that. Then when she gets out, I help her lotion, and then I tell her what we're going to do for the night. Then my wife comes in and typically reads.
Yeah.
And once my wife reads to her for an hour, and I come back and we do prayers and affirmation. And that's it. That's a nightly thing.
You talk about the affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you a question, and we did in the write-up, and you talked a lot about ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that y'all are a strong Christian family. Yep. You have strong beliefs there. Yep. Can you talk to me a little bit about your Christian angle as a dad, and then how that kind of transpired into these affirmations and like what you do every night?
Being a Christian is the foundation, but I try not to be, for lack of a better term, a Bible thumper, if you will.
100.
Because nobody wants to hear me preaching and testifying to them.
Yeah.
However, if I can lead by example and do things that exhibit a patient understanding and grace, then I can be good. But one of the things that we do is we go to church every Sunday, and I was selective about picking up a church that had a kids ministry because I wanted my daughter to grow into the space where she was not necessarily a Christian, but she would have faith or believe in something that was greater than her, that was intangible.
Sure.
Because if you have certainty, you don't need faith, but you need faith to grow and develop.
Hey.
The next thing is affirmations help to ground you in something that is oriented towards either your culture, your spirituality, or some type of goal that you have. So one of the, if you were to call my daughter right now and I would say a big girl affirmation, he says, my name is Maris Bean Hatcher. I'm 9 years old. I'm a big girl. My daddy loves me. I'm strong. I'm determined. I'm a leader, and no one can stop me. And I can only stop myself, and that'll never happen. She says that all the time, and that's every night because I want her to be steadfast, honest, and true. She has a poem that she says every night that talks about urgency called I'm Only Just a Minute. It says, I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it. I'm a suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is it. And she says that every night too, so that's one of our things in addition to the Lord's Prayer. And then we have another affirmation. But those things ground her in who she is. It centers her, and it helps her to refocus when she is in a bit of a quandary about who she is and what her identity is. I'll say, you need to say your affirmation, or you need to take a few minutes quiet time or for some breathing. And all those things are centered in Christianity, but more importantly, they evolve around self so that she can recenter and then determine who she wants to be. Because I think as a parent, one of the most important things that I want to do is give her the gift of discernment. Because people talk about, you have a beautiful little girl. I know you're going to have a shotgun. You're going to chase guys.
Yeah, when she gets into dating, I get the same stuff.
Not doing that, but
right.
If you give them the gift of discernment, when it's that time for flowering or whatever, they can be decisive and they can say, hey, little Johnny, come in the back. I got something I want to show you. Because if it's on her own terms, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm raising.
She's confident in her own self and what she is. And I feel that too. Like you, as a dad to girls, you always get that question. Like, oh, it's going to be trouble when they're 13, whatever those things. And I'm like, man, we're putting in the work now so that she is a confident, strong young lady. And she'll be able to make the right decisions because we did that.
That's right. And I think also you model in how you treat them. So I don't believe in the princess diatribe, if you will, but I do believe in having her to understand that her daddy is treating her a certain way. And it's because she deserves it. And she deserves it because she does the things that are necessary to do that. And if she doesn't carry herself in such a way, then it's up to her to determine what she gets and what she doesn't. So
there's this specialness about being a girl dad. And
100%.
I hold myself to this, where a lot of how she, at least my daughter, sees love is how she sees that I love my wife.
Exactly. 100%.
So if I'm talking to her in a loving way, holding her in a loving way, if I'm showing love, these are the examples that I'm going to show her that what love looks like, right? So when she's at that age where she's searching for a partner, this is what love looks like, right? This is what I'm looking for, right? And so if I'm a shitty partner,
Yeah.
that's what she might be like. This is what it's, oh, everybody yells at their wife. And so this is just normal. And so I hold myself to that where I'm like, I got to be an example of what love looks like. So she sees that.
No, 100%. Within that, I will also say that I think it's important too for your kid or your daughter, particularly, but we have older children too, to let them see how you disagree.
Sure.
Because life isn't all peaches and cream.
There you go. Okay.
And so you have to allow them to see how you navigate through the tough times too, and how there's a solution.
Yeah.
And we do that by teaching I feel and I need state.
Sure.
I feel, and we like to encourage, especially with Maris, because she was the youngest, the power to be intellectually curious.
Sure.
Dad, I'm curious, when you yelled at me, how you think I felt.
Yeah.
And then she can say, I felt, because she make an I feel statement. So, and in our house, it's very important to address feelings.
Sure.
So when she makes an I feel statement, even if you disagree, you have to acknowledge that feeling, because you can't tell someone how to feel.
That's so huge. Yeah, the feeling is big, because like my wife and I will always be like, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay. You should cry if you feel that way, but we talk through it too. And my wife is 10 times better than me at it. I'm always like, why are you crying? I might be saying something that I'll be like, oh yeah, I got to address the feeling and be with it. So
for that too, I tend to lean in and say, I'm curious about the tears. Tell me more.
Sure. Yeah. Or why did you feel that way? That's what my daughter says all the time. If I'm talking a little more stern, she'll be like, Daddy, you're talking loud. And I'm like, talking loud. I'm just, the moment I'm serious, she thinks I'm talking too loud. It's funny. All right. So one of the cool things that you shared with me, you talk about your approach to fatherhood, and the line you said was embrace presence over perfection. And I could take away what that means, but I'd love to hear from you about it, because I feel the exact same way.
So in talking with fathers, the 1,000 or so fathers I had over the 5 years I was teaching the class, one of the things that was evident in what made the fatherhood experience more enjoyable, and that thing was present. Like, and I used to say, perfection doesn't exist when it comes to, but presence does. So I said, we need to be present over perfect. And so I create this mantra called presence over perfection. And it just means you don't have to be perfect, but you got to be present if you really want to see growth and development. And so presence just means being in the moment, in that section with the kid. And it's impossible to be present all the time, but you can be present and real when you're there. And I think in doing so, it allows you to strive towards getting better than you were yesterday. And that's all moving toward the right way, if you will, if there's a right way, but towards what you seek and what you aspire to be. And so presence over perfection is a mantra that just suggests that you have to be present. You have to be in the game. You have to be emotionally in tune in order to make an impact towards perfection.
I like that. And the presence is, when you talk physically, like my daughter still, some days I pick her up from school, when she turns that corner and makes eye contact and she goes, Dad.
The greatest.
Like, oh my.
It's the greatest.
I'm never going to go work ever again. Like, we're going to pick you up every day now.
It's
That's
the greatest.
the thing. And so I love it. And the presence, it just makes so much sense. But do you ever get to a point where maybe you're not present in whatever it might be, work or professional life, whatever it might be, and you feel guilty for not? Because I get that. My daughter's mad when I go to the gym. She'll be like, Daddy, I hope you never, ever go to the gym ever again. I go, babe, I got to get healthy so I could be alive, forever.
I think for me, guilt is too strong, because I love big and I love strong. I love very big and strong. And so I expect it to be a letdown when I go away. But I think that's the part that I'm seeking to develop in her, because not even codependency on me do I want. So in those spaces, I try to either assign something that's either around mindfulness, around, my wife stretches and yoga and Pilates.
What do you mean assign something?
Assign like a guided mindfulness exercise. Or a pastor, something that she can read or memorize or something like that. Because within that allows some self-inflection, some reflection. It also allows her to build confidence around, what I like to tell her is, you're your own best friend. Mommy and daddy can love you, but nobody can love you like you love yourself. And it starts with you. And so that helps her to have quiet time so she can find things about herself that she likes. And she doesn't need validation from me, my wife, or anyone else. I miss her tremendously. I want to be with her all the time. But I do understand the convex nature of that being counterproductive to her development.
That's fair. Like when I miss her on these times, I make sure that I tell her that I miss her.
Tell
So
her.
I tell her, we have this ongoing joke, and I don't think that she believes it's a joke, but I go, yeah, I was at work and I missed you so much. I told everyone that I missed you, and they were like, go home and see your daughter. And that's why I'm home now. And so she's, did you tell everyone at work that you missed me?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
great.
yeah, and that's why
That's
I'm
great.
back, because I told them I had to go home. And so there's this ongoing joke. Like I said, I don't think she knows about it, but or when I go and I go to the gym or I play basketball or whatever, I'll come back and be like, man, yeah, I had a great time, but I missed you the whole time. And I want her to know that, because there's a sense of like love that's there, and she knows that I'm coming back, and she knows that I cherish that time together. So I always try to be intentional about what I'm saying. Oh man, I missed you so much when I was at work. Or I wanted to be with you the whole day. I say that.
No, that's great. I think and if that invigorates her, that's what you want to do. So that's good.
Yeah. And the one thing about presence that you touch upon, I'd like to go another angle where when I think about the greatness of every single moment and being present in that moment. And what I mean by that is we have even tough times, right? Like we're doing a bath and my daughter's freaking out for some reason, right? And she'll be like kicking and screaming. My wife might give me a look like, oh my, this is a night.
Yeah.
And I tell her all the time, I'm like, you know what? I said, in 25 years, we're going to say we would give absolutely anything to be right here, right now. And the fact that we're here now, let's take it in. Like, I know for a fact, 25 years from now, we'll be like, God damn, if we were just there, we remember when she was angry and she would kick and scream. It was so cute. And we're here now. Let's enjoy this now. So that's my idea of the presence of like right now. We're going to be loving it. Yeah, we're going to be loving it.
No, and all of that is the times when you're cleaning dirty diapers, the time when you're nursing somebody through a cold. All of those times, if you can focus on that moment in that moment, then you become better because of it. That means
it's every moment.
That's the presence.
Like if somebody told me now, what would you give me? You still cleaning diapers? And so I'm like, let's go. Take me back. I miss it.
But just being there and being able to help them to do things they can't do for themselves.
Yeah, that's rewarding too. It's when your daughter says, Daddy, will you help me do this? Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for asking me. Like it made me feel a certain way that you trusted me to do this.
Yeah, but with my daughter being 9 now and us trying to push her towards more independence, what I will ask her when she asks me to do something, I will ask her because I want to ascertain whether or not she's being lazy, whether she's putting on. So I tend to say,
like that.
now you ask me to help you because you can't do it yourself or because you just simply want some help with daddy. And then that creates a dialogue again because I'm trying to create responsibility on her part. And then I'll say, okay, and I'll assess whether I think it's something that she should be able to do. Yeah. And then if not, we seek to stage gate the steps to success. Yeah. So that way, maybe she can't do all 10 steps, but she can do 1 or 2 today. Sure. And that's why she's become so good at reciting things, because we'll break them down 1, 2, 3, or a section or a part. Yeah. And that's what I love to do.
I like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your parenting based on your upbringing, because you shared with me that your upbringing was quite different from your wife's. Yeah. And to some degree, you guys went through different things, but you got to come together and raise a Black daughter here in America, which, could be very tough. Yeah. Right. So why don't you tell me about that and that whole experience?
I tell probably the single-handed most responsible experience for who I am today is probably my mother. Close second is Morehouse College. My mother, Lois May Branch, was her maiden name. Yeah. My mom was raised in Jim Crow, Louisiana. Yeah. And came to Detroit as a part of the Industrial Revolution in the late 50s, early 60s. And she met my dad there, and they did their thing, and it was a great run. But my mother raised us, really was, one might say today, with an iron fist. I was the 5th of 6 welfare Section 8 kids from Detroit. And you had to mind and do what she told you to do, not only with the quickness, but with a precision, because growing up in Detroit in that time, it could cost you a life. Detroit is very territorial. So you don't wander off. Like, I'm from Southwest Detroit. I don't end up on the northwest side of town or the east side or the west side, because if people don't know me over there, then I'm having some issues. But my mom reared us to listen and be precise in what we do and be very intentional about our response to things in the environment. So I had, like I said, I was the 5th of 6. So I have 3 older sisters that are 14, 13, and 9 years older. And I had a brother who's deceased now who was 8 years old. But all those people were responsible for rearing me in addition to my mother. And pulling something from each one of those individuals helped me to better understand what it took to be a parent. And then also, because all of my sisters had children by the time they were 18, at some point, I had nephews and nieces who were right around the same ages. So my nephew, who I referenced earlier, my nephews and nieces were all raised in the same household like my brothers and sisters. And so within that, it lends itself to me to not only borrow those parenting skills, but also to infuse, I want to say, just a spirit of intentionality and a spirit of, hey, you need to heed this advice because it's going to be beneficial to you later. I give my daughter a lot of space and a lot of latitude, Kev, but I typically have a zero tolerance policy around lying and also around her safety and whereabouts. They're not negotiable. Because also, if my daughter were to tell me something, I want to know that what she's telling me is true. Because before I go and get into a situation, I don't want to have to come back and retreat because she told me something.
I feel that because my daughter has gotten to the point where I'll be like, she'll be sneaking a treat or something, and I'll ask her, and sometimes I know that she is lying, and it's not the lying part that gets me. I'm like, why do you think you needed to? I'm not going to get mad at you. Like, why were you scared to tell me the truth? That's what I try to get at.
I think that's good, man. I think that's healthy, and they'll test the boundaries and that sort of thing. And you have to just reel them in. And think that helps. So
your mom, great lady. She taught you some great ideas of parenting and great examples of how she raised you. That was back in the day, right? So you talk about what your mom has given you that you have brought to Maris, but is there something that she did that you're like, I'd do differently? And the reason why I say that is my mom and dad raised me amazing. I'm so grateful. But there are things today where I'm like, I probably wouldn't have done what they did to me. What are those things for you?
One of the things that Nolana and I talk about pretty regularly is that being raised the way I was raised, which is a little bit different where she was raised, is you did so because your parents told you to do so. And there was no negotiation or back talk. You just did what you were told to do. Now, I understand the benefits of that because it typically creates resilience in kids. But what it does is it robs them of emotional perspective. And here's what I mean by that. When you just do because you're told to do, then from an emotional perspective, that emotions are stripped out of it, right? And so you raise children with no emotional spectrum. They're either happy or sad. And so if you look at a lot of people who are the Gen Ys and Gen Xers, the problem that they have is it's all or nothing. It's all or nothing. That's largely because of upbringing. You do as I say do. And so with Maris, I wanted to always have an open discussion about how we can collectively get to the goal as opposed to me just using the hammer to drive home. Because when the only tool that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. What I try to do is have some degree of dialogue so that they can be point and counterpoint. And at the end, she can feel as if she has made the decision and not me. And that's the empowerment that I'm trying to give her. And that's what I would do differently than with my mom.
I like that empowerment. I like that word, just letting her make the right choices. And you almost like giving her the tools. And then you're like, oh, you do that. Because my parents were very much, you got to be the smartest in school. You got to get the best grades. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You better do that. And for us, like and my daughter, our vision has changed where you don't necessarily need to be the smartest, but you need to give the best effort.
That's right.
Your best effort. And you need to try your hardest. My wife corrects me a lot on it because it's like, you don't have to be the best. Because sometimes I get some Kobe Mamba mentality. You're going to be the best. You're going to crush it. But it's no, you tried your hardest. And that was what's most important. And whatever the outcome is from your best effort, that's what we appreciate. And that's what we love.
But I also have a saying around, it's called jewels, Jewels, jewels in the journey. In order to get to be the best, the most astute, and even the best you, there are jewels along the way. In the struggle, in the hardship. You mentioned Mamba mentality and Kobe earlier. One of the biggest things about the Mamba mentality is that Kobe was a relentless worker. And now, the way that he worked, I would think that probably if he wasn't a millionaire or whatever, might have probably taken away from some of his time to be with his family. His girls were well developed and his wife did a wonderful job to work. There's no substitute for it. And so the jewels come in the journeys of doing the work. And so I always encourage my daughter to do the work. Like, for instance, my daughter's very fast and is probably more because my wife was an All-American runner at UW, but not me.
Yeah.
But in playing basketball for the first time, the first game, she got to still ran length the court, boom, threw the ball off the backboard. And I was like, oh, God, what was that? And every day from January 16th, and we've only missed 3 since
Yeah.
that time, she has to get 30 makes a day. So we're shooting now. She has
Shooting
rotation. She
hoops?
has
Yeah.
form.
Okay.
And on the first day we counted, and she shot the ball about 75, 80 times just from on a low block.
Yeah.
Just to get to 15 makes.
Yeah.
And then when she got to be able to do that comfortably, then we went to 30 makes, and then we swapped and make it 30 from each side.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to see the journey, to see her improvement, because of she got the muscle memory and the jewels on the way to get to where she's trying to go.
Yeah.
And she's become better because of that.
So what's she in now? She's just playing basketball
She's
or
playing
track?
for SCAA, Seattle
Okay.
Chinese Athletic Association, down the Beacon Hill area.
Yeah.
I coached there with the older two for 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
I'll start coaching her next year when she's 10, but
Yeah.
not before she's 10. But yeah, she's playing basketball.
One of the things with mine is I know that eventually, so I love hoop, and eventually I would love it if she does, but
Yeah.
she might not. And I
Mhm.
got to figure out what it is that she likes and then support her through that.
Mhm.
Where if she's, Dad, I'm into hoops, I know that I would just go way too far into it. You know what I'm saying? Because I want you to love it too. And I don't want to be like a drill master. But I also want to push her
Yeah.
to be hard, work hard and do that. So how do you think you balance like pushing them to be their greatest, but also like giving grace to maybe you don't want to do this?
The first thing that we do in our home is, and my wife, through her physical therapy dissertation, came to this, is that she feels like kids should play all the sport.
Sure.
Because you work different muscles and develop different areas of the body. So
Yeah.
Maris, in addition to playing basketball and soccer, she does tap dance and majorette dancing.
Yeah.
And then she
You're
does
just a taxi
French.
at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. But to your point, though, but we're engaged, right? So when we see her in a performance and she's uncertain, that means we have more work to do. And so as parents, we have to get recordings of the thing, and we have to work through it with her so that she can be her best self. Because if she performs or she has a rehearsal and she says she didn't feel like she did her best, then we have to figure out why that is.
Yeah.
And then try to help her to connect the dots. Do you really feel like you've done your best? No. What could have been better? Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to work on that. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with the basketball
Yeah.
thing. And that's what happens with her
Yeah.
dancing. So
What do you think would happen if she was like, Dad, I don't really like dance?
I would say we're going to complete this cycle.
Sure.
You're
We're
going to
not
do whatever
quitters.
you need. Yeah, because at the end of every quarter, there's a recital.
Sure.
And then they start up all over again. 3
Yeah.
weeks, then they start up. So you're getting to the end of the cycle. We don't stop in the middle of anything.
Mhm.
So we're getting through the end of the cycle. And then once we get through the end of the cycle, you can make decisions if you want to do that again. But about 20 of your working hour of your non-school hours a week are going to be dedicated to something in the community or outside the house.
Yeah.
It
I
can
like
be
that.
sports. It can be feeding the homeless. It can be
Yeah.
working with kids smaller than you.
Yeah.
I don't care, but you're doing something outside the house that's going to be community based.
I like that. Can you share any examples of the community
Mhm.
part? Because like there are times where I think about that for my daughter. And
Yeah.
she's a little bit younger. I'm
Mhm.
like, we need to get her more involved. It's just finding the right opportunity. What makes sense? You guys done?
There's a couple things with camps now that she's bigger. So someone like a kid like your kid,
Yeah.
like she can be there and show them and be
Sure.
a
For a
demonstrator on
4-year-old,
some of
yeah.
the things that they're doing, right? And also, Maris was in a French submersion daycare.
Okay.
So she's fluent in French.
Okay.
So now that
Are
she's
you?
older, no. Me or my
She's saying
wife, I
stuff you
know.
don't even know.
Yeah, she is looking it up. But what we do is now Maris goes back on Fridays to the daycare with a French speaking because they have an evening class.
Yeah.
And not only does she refresh, but she helps some of the younger kids
That's great.
understand and learn what Tata, the teacher in French,
Yeah.
is trying to say. So those are a
Awesome, man.
couple of things there.
The greatest part about the work that I get to do on this podcast is I get to talk to dads who are sharing about their kids who are doing great things,
Uh-huh.
right? And I think that you got to be very proud. Think about just your kids and what they're doing
Mhm.
and have such a sense of pride for it. They're doing that because you instill the give back and all that. So
Yeah.
that must be pretty cool. Really
Yeah.
proud of it.
It's proud. The pride comes though from her commitment to do better at it.
Yeah.
Because you can just introduce them and put the spirit of completion, spirit of
But that's
bringing your
hard.
best self.
That's-
What's more important for me is that she's altruistic and empathetic,
Sure.
or empathic, I think is the right word. But for her to show empathy and for her to show altruism, which is the unselfish concern for the welfare of others.
Yeah.
And we talk about that all the time. And that's why it's super important for me to have her believe in something that is intangible to her. Because if you
It comes
have,
full circle now.
right,
There you go.
if you have faith, if you have certainty, you don't need faith.
Yeah.
And so if you have faith, then that means you believe that working towards something, you're going to reap the benefits of it. It may mean you get something in return. It may mean you just make the life better of someone else.
Yeah.
That's what I'm raising.
Love it. I love it, man. That's like very inspiring too. Like I'm fully of the mindset that our kids are a mirror of what they see and who we are. And so when I see great young ones, like 100% a big part of people like you and being intentional about your fatherhood. Hey, I'm trying. That's why I'm talking to you. I'm trying to learn more.
I have a mantra that says we all grow together, and I mean that. So we have to all push each other.
I believe it, Mark. Thank you. All right, we're going to go into the section that's like just some rapid fire questions. Okay. You can tell me the best part about being a dad and the worst part.
I think that the best part about being a dad is being able to utilize your experiences and the knowledge you have in this world, your tools, your resources, be it tangible or intangible, to help nurture the growth and development of this young being. My daughter, her nickname is Bean, like Jelly Bean or Bean or something like that. This because when my wife was pregnant, she was saying, man, because my wife was running marathons and things like that before, and she was like, no, I got 40 extra pounds of baby fat on me. And I would say, that's because you have a bean growing inside you. She would say, it's a bean, not a bean. Anyway, I say a lot to say, but to be able to nurture and develop this being is the best part. The worst part is that you really can't protect them from the nuances of society and all of the
only so much you can do.
Yeah. And so you have to equip them with the tools so they're empowered to speak truth to power, to smile in the face of adversity, to break through shackles of oppression, and then to reach for their aspirations. The good part is that you have the tools to be able to give them whatever you have. The bad part is that you can't protect them from the ills of society. So that's what I would.
Describe being a dad in one sentence.
Being a father is the most humbling and the most rewarding thing in the world at the same time. It's humbling because you're watching something that you probably love as much or more than yourself grow and develop. It's humbling because no matter what you pour into it, what you get out of it is very nebulous. The reward is, though, you have someone, something, this other being that can give you feedback right away to let you know you're on the right path. And it's the opportunity to know that you've made enough of an impact on the world in which this person, this being, this thing that you develop will contribute to society some way, shape, or form. And then you've just given them the tools to do that. So being a parent is the most humble.
I love it. Raising that bean.
That's right.
All right, last one is one piece of advice that you have for a new dad or someone that is not a dad yet. Maybe that's something that someone told you or something that you've learned in all your years. What's one piece of advice?
What I would say to any new or aspiring father is that parenting does not come with a rule book, instructions, or a guide. The main thing you have to do is show up and be present. And when you're present, when you're in a situation in which you don't know what to do, just be there and do your best. Whatever it is, whatever you call your best. But start with safety, because if your kid's not safe, then you have to be in a safe environment. But after you get to safety, show up and do your best. Protect your kid from the ills of society as best you can, but show up and do your best and understand it doesn't come with a rule book. Your best is enough. Know that your best is enough and rest assured that do your best.
Like that. Your best is enough. That's the key right there, because that's what I teach my daughter all the time. Thank you. That's the end of our pod. Mark, thank you so much for being here. I think that you shared a lot of great intentionalness about parenting, and there's a lot to learn here. So I appreciate you being here, man. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you for having me. Thank you for just allowing me to express myself. I'm sure the Rising Dad podcast will go great. And remember, it's presence over perfection, man. The jewels are in the journey. I love you. Thanks.